Yo, what's up, guys? Teacher Paul here, and the Austria Grand Prix is over. We have just watched who won. So if you haven't seen it yet, then I'll give you a spoiler alert here. But guys, this was a very exciting race. It was very, very entertaining from the very start. And it felt like watching, I don't know, 2018 maybe, but it was absolutely interesting to see. Now, I have given you a spoiler alert. We're going to check who won. So I'm going to change screens right now. Here we go. We see George Russell winning this Grand Prix ahead of Max Verstappen, who is back. Then we have Kimi Antonelli right under Verstappen. Now, this was a podium that had a 3-second difference between first, second, and third, which is absolutely insane how close it was. Now, there was question whether Antonelli was going to push in the last lap just to get 3 points. And I think he was a little bit hesitant because of what happened last time, and he didn't push it as hard as he wanted to. Piastri in fourth, which is kind of news, especially because Leclerc was supposed to be there. As we saw in the qualifying, he was in second position, which I don't know how he did it, but he managed to end up in eighth, which is crazy if you ask me. Ferrari didn't have a great strategy, I don't think so. They tried to do a 3 pit stop, and I don't think it was that great. I don't think it was a interesting strategy for them, and they weren't as fast as we thought they could have been in the straights. But even so, Hamilton got 5th place. He was in second for most of it until Verstappen Verstappen went from 5th to 2nd, which is absolutely insane. And Antonelli, he started off going off the pitch 3 times in the beginning, but he did find his pace and he did find the 3rd position. So he did make it to he did make it to the podium. Hadjar, absolutely great driving, overtaking Norris and Leclerc. It was just really cool to see. We saw Lawson, Lindblad, and Bortoleto also chasing each other. It was a really entertaining thing. Now, one thing came to mind when they were giving the interviews. Verstappen, he crashed in the qualifying. Antonelli said if he had a little bit more laps, like 2 or 3 more laps, it would have been interesting. And, what he meant by that was he said he was late for the party. So he wasn't happy with 3rd place. We could see it in his post interview. He thought that he could have had a better position. Now, there were a few things that happened, and this video, we're going to cover like the highlights or what happened in the GP next video, probably when when we have a video to react to it with the highlights. But today we have a video that will talk about the qualifying, and I know that qualifying was yesterday, but I feel like the qualifying and all its controversies and everything that happened in the qualifying led to the results of today. If Kimi had started in 2nd or 1st place, I think it could have been different. I think if Verstappen hadn't crashed and he had started in 1st or 2nd, the results could have been different today. They were so close to each other, and I think if the qualifying went either way, it could have changed. So this is from a channel called GP en Casa, and we're going to check out what happened and how this affected today's final result. But I want to say, he's back. It's absolutely awesome. The fact that he was racing Hamilton throughout the whole, or maybe more than half of the race, was absolutely insane. Absolutely amazing to see. Hamilton racing Verstappen felt like old times. Verstappen didn't end up in podium, but sorry, Verstappen ended up in podium, but Hamilton didn't. So it was interesting to see Hamilton and Verstappen going head to head, and it was absolutely nice to see Verstappen back. We saw Hamilton's comeback as well, and things are getting much more interesting now. Let's go.
Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome to another video here on GP at Home, your channel about Formula 1 in Brazil, where we're bringing you a summary of everything that happened in qualifying for the Austrian GP, which promised a lot of balance, several new developments in the teams, and also uncertainty until the final seconds. That's exactly what happened. But first of all,
Naan bread?
Until the final seconds.
Dude, naan means bread. You don't say bread. You just say naan. Or Indian bread, I guess.
That's exactly what happened. But first of all, please subscribe to our channel. That way you won't miss any new videos. We have videos every day, always full of reliable information for you. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. That helps us a lot here at GP at Home. Remember, the best t-shirts for your Formula 1 fans are available at the GP at Home store. We have restocked some t-shirts like those inspired by Edson, and we also have t-shirts inspired by Lewis Hamilton's first victory, which are already a huge hit with fans, but a pinned comment for you. Well, in today's and yesterday's free practice sessions, we saw Mercedes very strong, but there's still a definition of the team's drivers. First, Antonelli showed a very strong performance, but in the last minutes of FP3, George Russell managed the best time, showing that he's in the fight.
Yeah, that's the great thing about Russell. It's the second time he won in the Austria GP. And a lot of people had already isolated him and saying, yeah, he's out of the conversation. He's already been isolated. You know, Toto has a new favorite. They were all saying that. But then, boom, Russell is back. He is back. This is his second win in the championship. He won in Australia. Now he won again in Austria. Wait, I think there's a pattern there. He likes the sounding countries. Next time he's gonna race in his hometown, so that's gonna be interesting as well. You know, it feels good for Russell.
Further back, an interesting battle between McLaren, Red Bull, and Ferrari for second and third place. Verstappen is a little more comfortable with his car. Ferrari is closing in mainly with Lewis Hamilton, and McLaren is very close to Mercedes' pace. The Brazilian driver Gabriel Bortoleto showed that he has the potential to reach Q3. So that's another point of attention for us to keep an eye on in this qualifying session. Now, for those of you who are just starting out in Formula 1, qualifying is divided into three parts: Q1, Q2, and Q2 and Q3. The first two parts eliminate the 6 slowest drivers, and the final part decides the top 10. So let's start with Q1, the first part, which lasts 18 minutes and eliminates the 6 slowest drivers. And with the time released, as expected, the track was immediately quite crowded. Many cars wanted to set their times as quickly as possible to avoid setbacks during the session, red flags, accidents, and everything else. And those in the biggest hurry.
Oh, speaking of accidents and everything else, there were 2 moments where Kimi Antonelli could have taken advantage of the virtual safety car, but he was so, might I say, unlucky. And I think his team should have reacted faster and called him on the radio. But there were moments that he could have taken advantage of that virtual car.
Were the cars at the back of the grid, the Cadillacs, Aston Martins, and Ras, who were trying to pull off a surprise, who perhaps advanced to Q2. Those in no hurry at all were the McLarens, Ferraris, and Red Brook cars. They waited a little longer in the garage as well. Kim Antonelli of Mercedes waited a bit longer. George Russell went out immediately too, not wanting to wait for his first laps. With 13 minutes remaining, the cars that were in the garages went out of the track and...
Let me just address, this is an AI translation, okay guys? This is how the dude actually sounds.
Foram para a pista e os que estavam na pista foram para a garagem. Max Verstappen foi o que puxou o pelotão.
Okay, just letting you know that he is not having a stroke. It's AI translation, so you guys can understand what he's saying.
First laps. With 13 minutes remaining, the cars that were in the garages went out of the track, and those that were on the track went back to the garage. Max Verstappen led the pack, and after the laps, Of the main drivers, Kim Antonelli was the fastest, Lando Norris was second, and Lewis Hamilton third. The top
Kimi was the fast, like in today's GP, he was the fastest in many of the laps, and he was catching up with Verstappen. But I think he pressed on a little bit too late. If he had 3 more laps, as he said, I think he would have caught Verstappen, and he could have even caught George. Although that could have ended in disaster as well.
3 were separated by only 0.2 of a second. Verstappen finished 4th, Leclerc was only 7th, and George Russell, who did a lap a little earlier, was 8th, odds 8th. Up to that point, Gabriel Bortoleto hadn't yet set a fast lap. He was one of the drivers who opted to leave it until the end of Q1, perhaps confident that he had a car capable of easily advancing to Q2. After Bortoleto's first attempt, he jumped to 14th place, a still dangerous, complicated position, so perhaps he would have one more fast lap at the very end to secure his time. Then, after the first lap, Verstappen complained that the car was understeering a bit, still a little unbalanced, which was causing him to lose some time. Verstappen.
Oh yeah, and he did complain about the brakes today, and he almost went off. Like there was a battle between Verstappen and Hamilton, where Hamilton almost threw him off, which was absolutely crazy to see. And right before he had mentioned, oh, the brakes are rubbish, his braking, you could see the smoke. It was crazy.
Claims that the car has been quite unstable this weekend. Sometimes he's happy, sometimes he's not. So let's see where he finishes this qualifying session. Well, after making some adjustments in the pits, the drivers returned. For the final stretch, at least most of them returned to try for at least one more fast lap and secure their place in Q2. At that moment, Carlos Sainz, Sergio Perez, Valtteri Bottas, Esteban, Fernando Alonso, and Lance Stroll were in the elimination zone. And in that last attempt, Lindblad had a good time, jumping to 8th. Kenberg also improved his time. George Russell had to go out on track and only managed the 5th best time. And Gabriel Bortoleto, who was on the verge of being eliminated, managed to nail his last lap and jumped to 12th place. And he made an excellent lap, even though he made some mistakes during it. So
only 2 of the cars started off with soft tires. Most of them had medium tires. Bortoleto was one of them that had the soft tires, and he was, the plan was to go as fast as possible. But I think medium tires were the way to go. And I know that Ferrari, they went from medium to hard, and it was interesting that Hamilton pit 17 laps in, which is too early. And I think the strategy was to try to go as far as you can with that hard, and at the end maybe pit again, but that didn't work. So yeah, and not only Hamilton but Leclerc also did that. So it was absolutely a fail when it came to strategy. I don't know what was going on with their cars. It was slow on the straights, and yeah, they just didn't manage to keep those top positions. Starting off, Ferrari started at 2nd and 3rd, but they ended up in 5th and 8th, which is a pretty considerate downgrade,
In the end, Antonelli was 1st, Norris 2nd, and Hamilton 3rd in Q1. And those eliminated were Carlos Sainz, Alex Albon, Sergio Perez, Valtteri Bottas, Fernando Alonso, and Lance Stroll.
Surprise.
Okay, moving on to Q2, the second part, which again eliminates the 6 slowest drivers in last 15 minutes. Unlike Q1, in this part, nobody was in such a hurry to get on the track. Only the McLaren cars went out about 2 minutes after the allotted time, and gradually more drivers went out for their laps. With 10 minutes remaining, the track was practically full. Only Norris, who had already made his first attempt, returned to the garage. And after everyone's lap, Antonelli took the lead with Piastri in 2nd and Leclerc in 3rd. Lewis Hamilton set the 4th fastest time, and Verstappen was 5th with Gabriel Bortoleto in 11th. In other words, at that moment, Bortoleto would be eliminated, but he would still have at least one more chance for a fast lap to try to get into the top 10.
What's interesting? People are saying that Kimi Antonelli's luck has been stolen from him. Let me know if you agree in the comments down below. However, you know, Antonelli did well in the qualifying, except for the last. We're gonna see Q3 what happened, where he thought he had a double yellow flag, which it wasn't, and that made him abort his last lap, which he thought was going to be his fastest lap, while Verstappen, you know, crashed. It was interesting to see, and we're going to talk about that in a second, but it feels like things aren't going Kimi's way.
Complicated situation
Anymore.
for George Russell, who couldn't get a correct lap on his first attempt and was in last place. So much so that Russell was the only one who stayed on the track to try another lap, to try to improve his times. The team even radioed him to just strive, to try and concentrate because things weren't going well for him, and it would be a disaster if he didn't qualify for Q3. Unfortunately, he managed to get a lap right, jumping to 4th place, probably a comfortable time for him to get through Q3. And at that moment, Red Bull made a risky decision with Verstappen. They didn't send him out on track, and he dropped to 10th place. In other words, any driver who got a lap right would push him down, and he would be eliminated.
That's crazy,
and
isn't
after
it?
the time ran out, Antonelli was the fastest, Piastri was second, and Norris was third. To the relief of Max Verstappen, the drivers who managed to improve were unable to beat his current time. He finished 10th, and those eliminated were Pierre Gasly, Gabriel, Bortoleto, who even improving his time still couldn't get into the ring, to the top 10, Oliver Berman, 13th, Rückenberg 14th, Ocon 15th, Ocon Ferrari, Ocon 15th, and Colapinto 16th. Okay, so let's move on to Q3, the decisive part of qualifying, which lasts only 13 minutes and determines the top 10. With time cleared, there was no rush to get on track. Everyone was relaxed, waited a little while, and only with about 10 minutes remaining did the drivers begin their first attempts. In this first attempt, Max Verstappen set an excellent time, but even so, it was not yet enough to beat the cars from Mercedes at this specific moment in the session. Antonelli was the fastest, Russell was second, and Verstappen third. The three were separated by only 0.6 of a second, very close. Lewis Hamilton made a mistake and ended up losing this first attempt, finishing in 10th place, but everyone still had one more lap. They stopped in the pits, changed tires, and then returned in the final minutes. With 3 minutes to go, the cars returned for their last attempts on. Lewis Hamilton was the first to start his lap, having a little leeway. If something went wrong, he would have time to start another attempt. And on Hamilton's first lap, he jumped to nothing less than first place. Could we have a pole position for Lewis Hamilton? Shortly after, it was Charles Leclerc's turn to set the fastest time and jump into first. Look at Ferrari appearing there at the last second. And to help Leclerc,
So this was exciting because we saw that Hamilton was in first, and then boom, Leclerc right after he was first. And this is what when Verstappen crashed.
First, look at Ferrari appearing there at the last second. And to help Leclerc, who usually doesn't have much luck in Formula 1, Max Verstappen, who was doing well, made a mistake and crashed his car, causing a yellow flag and ending the qualifying session. However, at the last minute, George Russell still managed to complete his lap, taking first place, but he would probably have lost that first place precisely because of Max Verstappen's yellow flag. In the end, the FIA made the decision and maintained George Russell's pole position. So Russell will be first, Leclerc second, Hamilton third, Antonelli fourth, Verstappen fifth, Norris sixth, Piastri seventh, Bortoleto Lawson ninth, and Lindsay Lohan 10th. This will certainly generate a lot of discussion, and I want to know your opinion. Do you think the decision was fair? Was George Russell's qualifying and pole position fair? And what do you think of Max Verstappen's crash? Talk to us in the comments.
Okay, so I just wanted to check out this video with you guys because it is an important sorry about the AI translation, but it feels like it's an important thing. Obviously, the qualifying and the pole position, it gives you a specific advantage when you are racing. And I feel like this was crucial. Antonelli, he said it was his mistake. He thought it was a double yellow flag. But I feel like the radio, they could have told him, like, you know, I don't know. They could have helped him out. But they didn't. Not then and not today. So it was a little bit controversial. And he got one flag. He thought it was a double flag. And everyone else also thought it was a double flag. When it came to Russell, we thought it was a double flag, double yellow flag. The radio told him, keep going. Instead of telling that to Kimi as well, they could have told Kimi, keep going as well. So I feel like they're favoring a little bit, over here. They're favoring George a little bit. They told George, keep going. And he kept going. But they didn't tell that to Kimi. And he aborted. He could have had another lap. He aborted. So I feel like it was a little bit controversial because of that. And obviously, it didn't matter that Kimi was in 5th position, and it didn't matter when it actually Antonelli was in 4th. Didn't matter he was in 4th. Didn't matter that Verstappen was in 5th. They managed to go above Hamilton and Leclerc. So, Verstappen overtook Antonelli. Antonelli had a hard time in the beginning, and it felt like Verstappen. He also won race, racer of the day. He won that, and I think driver of the day. He deserved that because he was really good at that. Well deserved. Verstappen is back. Antonelli got 3rd place, but it felt like he was in his head too much. And now Ferrari, I don't know what happened to them. They were 2nd and 3rd, and they ended up not winning. So a little bit disappointing for Ferrari. But that was the GP. A little bit of some insight. What do you think? Do you think the qualifying could have gone or had a difference if they had given Russell a double yellow flag? Do you think he would have ended up still winning? Because as I said, it didn't matter for Verstappen. It didn't matter for Antonelli. If Verstappen hadn't crashed, he probably would have been in either 1st or 2nd. He would have been a faster time than Russell, because we saw that he was going faster. And Antonelli could have been also 1st or 2nd. I'm not sure. But do you think it would have been different if Verstappen was 1st, Antonelli 2nd, Russell 3rd? Or Antonelli 1st, Verstappen 2nd, Russell 3rd? Or even if Russell had been 1st, Antonelli 2nd, Verstappen 3rd, do you think any of that would have made a difference in today's race? As I said, they all had a difference of 3 seconds. It was super close, super tight. Anyone could have won. But that is what happened. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Let me know your thoughts. Bye-bye. Take care.